Well, I'm excited for today's guest. Welcome to the podcast, Chelsea. So excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I've listened to your podcast quite a bit before, so very excited to be on.
Amazing. Well, I am excited to talk a lot more about e-commerce businesses because it's not something that I talk too much about on the podcast. And
Yes.
when we've had multiple conversations in the past, and I love what you put out, and I love that you're so open to actually speaking to both paid and organic marketing when it comes to your e-commerce business, because I feel like sometimes it can often be one or the other. It's like you have to do,
Mm.
but you need to actually have the blend. So I'm excited to see where this conversation is going to go today. So before we even dive in, can you give us a little bit of a background about yourself, about when you started Blossom and what Blossom Media is all about?
Sure. So I started Blossom Media, I think it's about 3.5 years now. Hard to remember exactly. I think about 3.5 years. And before that, I was working at a marketing agency, which I started working at just after I was at uni. I did not finish my uni degree. I only did a semester and was just really not loving it. It was marketing, and I knew that I wanted to do marketing, but I think it was just the type of learning I just wasn't resonating with. So I kind of said to myself, I'll defer, I'll see if I can get a job in marketing, even with no experience, see how I go. And luckily, I was able to find a job at a marketing agency, and I worked there for about 2.5 years. But it was very different to what I do now. It was, B2B, it was very tech, big tech companies, and it just wasn't really lighting me up, I guess, but obviously was amazing. I learned so much. But I kind of started doing a bit of freelance work on the side, really working in the social media space. It's something I've grown up with and always been really interested in, and always worked on a lot. So yeah, just started doing some of that on the side and just started getting busier, with referrals. And I started my own Instagram, my business Instagram, and got a lot of people through that. And since then, it's just been a bit of a whirlwind. Those 3 years have gone very, very fast. But did go full time in my business quite soon after I started it, and then just had to navigate running a business. When I did start my business, I was 20, and definitely had no business experience. So yeah, just kind of working out obviously how to help my clients and all of that sort of stuff, but also running a business and how to get new clients and navigate all of that. So yeah, it's definitely been a journey, which I'm sure every business owner can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially like, my goodness, like starting a business at 20, like
Mm,
I can't even. Like I was running other people's businesses at 20, but I couldn't have even thought, but again, it would have been a different time of like,
yeah.
whereas now I feel like it's like so encouraged, right? Like I just
Mm,
love that as people, like I have nieces and nephews that are, 14, 15, 16. Some are, I've actually got a niece and nephew that are like 18, 19, and they're already starting businesses. They've already got businesses. And I'm like, I
so good.
freaking love that. It's so good that there's a whole different space now where it's so encouraged. So what do you feel like was like the biggest like learning lesson that you had to have starting a business so young?
Yeah, there was a lot. I think the main one would probably be having to, deal with any of those prejudices around being so young. Because obviously I don't have that years of experience that people that have worked in, big corporates and everything have. And, some people would come to me and kind of find out that I was young and then not want to work with me, which I totally understand. But in the social media space, our generation are the ones who have grown up with social media. We know it like the back of our hand. Obviously, we do have to, learn the marketing side of things, but I don't think anything can beat that education you get by literally, growing up with social media and seeing its conception to what it is today. So yeah, I think I've just, experienced a bit around that and people not respecting boundaries and, not wanting to pay invoices and all of that sort of thing. And I think maybe trying to take advantage because I was and am young. So yeah, just kind of putting those boundaries in place and trying to not just be a people pleaser and having that confidence to, say no or say, no, this is what we agreed and all of that sort of thing. So that's probably been the biggest one.
Yeah. And you know what, like even years on from that, people still have those challenges, right? Still have
Yeah.
people pleasing tendencies, still have
Oh, for
those
sure.
boundaries when you just set into place. It's like coming to that level of confidence within yourself to set that too. And I think that that's a huge learning curve that I think every business owner goes through. And you're so right when it comes to socials. Like I think that not only does it constantly change, so working in it rather than just learning about it is
Mm,
like baptism of fire, but at the same time, it makes you better at it, right? Like I was talking to a client about this like a year or so ago, and she was like, but how do you learn social media? Like, is there a course you can take? And I was like, no, just go and do it. Like you
Yeah.
need to actually be doing it on a consistent basis, be interested in it, see and be noticing what everyone else is doing and figure out how they do it and Google it and do all the things because
Yeah.
it always is constantly changing. I don't think you could ever do one course and then it'd be done, right? Like it's not.
No, definitely not. And yeah, it is the businesses and the people that actually have an interest in social media and are actually on the platforms, and you're not just using the platforms to just post a business post and then leave. Like you do really need to be involved and use them as that social platform that they were designed to be.
Absolutely. So I'd love to know, what do you love about what you do?
Oh, I love a lot. My favorite thing, and what lights me up is really the educating. I do quite a lot of masterclasses and workshops and that sort of thing, and I just love and coaching, and I love just seeing the business owner, grasp what I'm saying, or me really help them understand something, or help them, get results when they do put into place what I teach them. It's just so awesome to see. And as we said, social media, it's such a confusing place, changes all the time. So it's really great when I can help someone become more confident with that and not see it as this thing that they dread. So that's, yeah, definitely one of my favorite things. I also obviously love just the flexibility that comes with running my own business, being able to create these services whenever I want, really, new things. I'm definitely someone that does get bored easily. So it's so good to just be able to innovate and do all these different things really whenever I want. So yeah, really, really love that aspect of it too.
Love it. I'm exactly the same. I love the
Yeah.
creativity that goes with it and that quick moving, right? Like I imagine you're very similar to that, where it's like, oh, you get this idea and you're like, want to bring it to life, and then you just go and do it.
Yeah. No one to ask, no one to check with. You can just go.
So good. So good. And so you very much specialize with e-commerce brands. Would that be true to say?
Yeah, definitely. And I did start my business serving anyone that would come, anyone that would pay me, obviously just to get that experience and because it was a new business, which I think most people probably do. But
Sure.
yeah, I think it was maybe kind of 6 months down the line that I was working with quite a few e-commerce businesses, and it was just the work that I really enjoyed, and also the work where I was getting the best results for them, and I could really see that potential, I think. And obviously there isn't a huge amount of people, well, back then there is now, but wasn't a huge amount of people, I think, specializing just in e-commerce as well. So I kind of found that space that I really enjoyed and obviously saw the potential there. So yeah, kind of decided from that point to really specialize in e-commerce and kind of got rid of all my service-based clients. And yeah, from then on have really focused on those either physical or digital product businesses that sell online. Some of them have physical stores as well, but we obviously focus on the online component.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. So I'd love like for us today to talk a lot more about that paid marketing and organic marketing for e-commerce businesses. But that's
Yeah.
not to say that service-based businesses probably will also take a lot out of this. So I would love to know, when it comes to, actually, let's just start super, super clear. So when it comes to when you say product-based business or e-commerce business, what do you specifically mean? Like, what is a product?
Yes. So basically a physical product that you can hold in your hands, or a digital product. So something like an ebook or a course. I would say majority of our clients are more the physical products, but we do have a few of the digital products as well. And yeah, that is my definition of e-commerce. Some people have different types of definitions, but yeah, basically any sort of product. So not a service, where you're doing something for someone like a plumber or a social media marketer like I am. So yeah, that's kind of the difference.
Awesome. I just wanted to start there because I think it's important to point out, because before we even hit record, I spoke about how, like, service-based businesses can actually have products, right? So it's like sometimes we introduce them later on. And so I just want to get clear on that, because even if you're a service-based business listening to this, if you're wanting to launch a course or if you're wanting to have templates or some type of digital product to sell, you're definitely going to take a lot away from today's episode. So let's just start firstly with e-commerce brands, and like, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see businesses make as they start to grow?
Yeah, that's a good one. One that isn't really related to social media, I can start with, is not outsourcing anything and trying to do everything themselves. And I've seen so many businesses, get stuck because they are trying to get to this next level. They're doing all this amazing marketing. They're releasing all these new products. It's all great, but they're, still packing their own orders. They're still doing everything themselves. And it just doesn't give you that space to be able to grow. And yeah, a lot of the time, as in any business, you do have to really invest to get to that next level. So whether that is investing in a team or outsourcing or, investing in paid marketing, all of that sort of thing. I think that is obviously a scary thing to invest your money and more money than you are in products and everything like that. But it is really what is needed to get to that next level. So yeah, I think not outsourcing and not investing are probably the two biggest mistakes, that aren't related to social media. But if we're talking about social media, probably the biggest one is not focusing on the community aspect of social media. Obviously talking about the organic side of things here, but I think a lot of people, as I kind of mentioned before, just use social media as that selling platform, and aren't really engaging with their audience and trying to nurture and strengthen their community and, asking their audience what products they want to see and all of that sort of thing. They're just kind of on their own path. But, your audience is who's going to buy from you and who's going to recommend you to people. And you really need to have that strong community, I believe, to be able to really grow and get to that next step. So yeah, I'd say those are probably the three kind of main ones that I see a lot.
Yeah, really good. Because I totally agree. I've seen that as well, where they literally either don't focus on the community, or you see the brands that have grown really well, really fast, are the ones that have really developed their community.
Yes.
And sometimes it actually just comes natural from the person, right? And so if it doesn't come natural, what would you say some of the things that they need to be focusing on when it comes to building that community online?
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't come natural to a lot of people. So that's a great question. I always love to create some sort of personal brand in an e-commerce brand, which isn't something that I guess people recommend a lot. Obviously, in a service-based business, you are the service provider, so you're usually creating that personal brand. But in an e-commerce business, you think it's just kind of about your products. But when you start showing the people behind the brand, and usually it's, if you don't have a team, it's just you, the business owner. Once you start, showing your face, it gives that story and that person behind these products. And that saying, people buy from people want to connect with someone and want to, go on that journey with you. So when you can show even your face or just tell your audience a little bit about you, it just starts building those connections. And usually once you do start, it does start to become a bit more comfortable eventually with a little bit of practice. So, your first Instagram story of you speaking might be absolutely horrible. You might hate it, but it's literally just practice. So as you keep going, you'll become so much more comfortable. You will see how it impacts your growth and your community and your sales as well, because it is such a powerful way to make more sales. But yeah, my advice is just start as uncomfortable as it might be, and show your face and show the person behind the brand is always my biggest advice.
I so agree. I feel like people buy from people they really like.
Yeah.
Right. And so they want to get to know you. And I think that it also just comes with a caveat that you don't have to share everything either. Like, I think some people have that expectation that they're like, oh, but if I start showing my face and talking about my life, I have to give everything. And it's like, nope, you get to choose what you want to share. But they do want to know who's making it, who's sending it out, and having that personal touch is super important. Hey.
Yeah, and yeah, boundaries are definitely important and such a huge thing. And that's something I do teach my clients when we do start to create that personal brand. What are things you don't want to share and what are things you don't feel comfortable with? And that obviously might change over time. You might start getting more comfortable and want to share more, but it's definitely not necessary. It's literally just, what you want to share. And you can, obviously, I always recommend being real and being you and sharing that realness when you can, but you can really create your own kind of social media persona if you do feel more comfortable doing that. And, it doesn't really have to be exactly you, and you don't have to share all the bad parts if you don't want to. So yeah, you can kind of do it in your own way, I think, as long as you are connecting on some level, it works.
Yeah, nice. And what about for those business owners that either have possibly built that and now they're at the stage where they kind of want to step back and focus on it being a brand rather than being a personal brand? Would you suggest in that transition of like, oh, they've realized that they've built this brand around their name and around themselves, and they're like, oh my goodness, for me to actually go to that next level and scale, I'm not going to be able to I don't want to be on socials every single day and attach myself and taking that action and showing up on stories to get the results or to get the sales.
Yeah.
What would you then suggest when they're starting to step into that next phase?
Yeah, once you get to that certain level and you've built that really great community, a lot of the time you can then kind of focus it more on the community in a way. So you should, be having your customers posting stories about your brand and posting photos and all of that sort of thing. And you can kind of bring that element into it to really, share that community and build it, because people are seeing, other people using the products, and it just creates this little, I know I've used the word community a lot, but this little community that people want to be a part of. So, once you do want to step away, of course, also showing your team is a great way to do it if you do have a team at that point, which you probably will. It doesn't always have to be just you, just focused on you. You can start bringing your audience, your customers, and anyone that's on your team into it. So it doesn't have to be so focused on you, and you don't have to put in all of that energy to show up every day. So and that's what a lot of businesses do once they get to that point. Of course, they do still show up at some point with themselves and still, have that connection, but a lot of the time they might not even be the ones replying to their messages anymore on Instagram. So if they are then introducing the person that is replying, it just creates that next level of connection, and people don't mind if it isn't the business owner they're connecting with, as long as it's someone that's connected to the business in some way. It's still like they have that connection with the business and with the brand, even though it's not that specific person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Still, creating that community around it. And I think I agree with you. And even when you were saying like having your customers share, show pictures or stories of them wearing or using your product, I think it creates also that like social proof of when we see someone else using something and they look like us or they feel like us and we relate to them, we want to see ourselves in it, right? So we actually feel much more connected to the product, because it's like, well, if she's using it, then I want to use it, right? So it's a beautiful way to actually, increase your sales as well, because people want to see it being used, and it creates this next level of like wanting it, I guess, or desiring it.
Yeah, 100%. Social proof is amazing and definitely needed. And when you can get it from your customers, it's just great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so what I would love to talk about is paid advertising first, and then we'll go into organic. So when it starts with stepping into that next phase, I'm guessing that there is, before you start investing into doing advertising, there's probably some things you need to have in place in your business before you go and start putting money behind it. What would you say those things would be?
Definitely. So you want to make sure you have a high converting website. So making sure, because, paid ads, you're obviously just sending people to your website. So once they get on that website, you want to make sure they're actually going to convert and that you have all the steps in place for them to be able to do that. So making sure that, the traffic you're sending organically already is converting really well. You have that conversion rate. Usually we say kind of 2% and above if you are looking at your stats, but obviously the higher, the better. So making sure you have a high converting website, a great website, making sure that you are making those consistent sales already. A lot of people will have maybe 30 sales and then they're like, oh, well, this is great. I want to, start building this with ads. But 30 sales is not enough data there to really be able to know who your audiences are, what they're loving about the products, just even data to use in terms of your audiences and your Facebook pixel and everything like that. So you really need to be getting those consistent sales every month, ideally quite consistent every month. So, the same amount or growing is perfect. And then once you do turn those Facebook ads on and you have that good strategy coming in that funnel, it's just going to, create a whole new bunch of sales because you are reaching new people and bringing those people to your highly converting website. So those are probably the main two. The other one would be having, again, that really great social media, organic social media presence, because you are running social ads. So usually people will click on the ad and either go to your website or go to your socials. So you want to make sure if they do go to your socials, you have that great presence and they can see that social proof and everything we've spoken about. Also, of course, that is an audience you can use, and that data you can use to make your ads work better as well. So everything you've done up to the point where you start ads will really help the ads. So ideally waiting until you have all of that and as much data as you possibly can is going to be the best possible solution when you do turn those ads on.
Yeah, awesome. That's so good, because I think that sometimes when people start to go, okay, I'm going to start putting some money behind this and start putting actually money on ads, there's actually that space between getting started and then seeing the results come through of
Mm,
building the audience, right? And actually figuring things out and like making sure that the ads are actually working, that sometimes can be a barrier for people to actually get in.
yeah.
Would that make sense to say?
Oh,
Of like,
definitely.
yeah. So what
Yeah.
would you say to those business owners that are like, oh, I've probably got a couple of quotes of like, I'm going to have to start putting thousands of dollars into my marketing now, and
Mm.
I'm hesitating because it's going to take time, or it's going to be like they've educated me in the space of like, oh, we're going to have to build your audience first, or something like that. Like, what would you say to those business owners?
Yeah, obviously there is always that phase when you do start ads and you do have to wait to build some of that data. But if you have done all of those things I just spoke about, it's going to be a lot shorter of a time. So that's why I do always recommend people kind of waiting until they have all of those things in place and as much data as they can, because then things work a lot faster and you're not going to have to spend as much money to build those audiences. So that's probably my top recommendation. But like anything great, things take time. And if you think about your organic marketing and how long that might have taken to build and actually start getting sales from, it's going to be a lot faster than that, but it is going to take that time to initially start getting those sales and becoming consistent. So yeah, any marketing you're doing is going to take time to start building, so you just kind of have to think about it like that. And that's why also I do recommend people start on a bit smaller budgets, so they're not breaking the bank to invest in these ads and they're able to keep them going for a long time. Because if you just spend all of your money, you have all of your budget on the ads in the first month, then you can't keep them going because you might not have gotten those results in the first month. So yeah, definitely a few things you can do to make it a bit easier, but yeah, you do kind of have to be aware that it might take some time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you shared that, because it's one of the biggest things I think, with conversations that I've had with business owners that have an e-commerce brand. It's like, oh, I could possibly do it for a month or two,
Mm,
but then I don't know, right? And I'm going to or they wait till the very last piece where like, we need to bring some money in, right? They're in that space of scarcity.
yes.
They're just like, oh my God, we need to bring money in. And then it's going to take longer, right? And it's like, maybe that's what not you should be focusing on. um,
Yeah.
so do you want to speak to that, like, before I ask the next question?
Yeah, I just think that's the worst time to do ads, when you are in that really, scared and stressful situation of needing more money, or needing more sales. That's really bad time to do ads, because a lot of the time they usually won't work when you are in that space. And of course your mindset, I know you speak a lot about mindset, is going to be horrible and stressed and all of those things. So you are going to likely run the ads for a few weeks, see that they're not getting sales, so you're wasting, in quotation marks, all this money, and just turn them off, and then it's just going to be a waste of time and money. So yeah, I think you do need to have that mindset of these are going to be running for at least 3 months, ideally over a very long period of time. We have campaigns that we've been running for clients for over 3 years, obviously changing audiences and changing ads, but they have been consistently running ads for that long. So yeah, you really need to think about the long term and making sure that you do have that money to invest over the long term, as well. So yeah, definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And so I think maybe we should talk about organic first, because I feel like I'm like getting cut before the horse, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's say that they're not necessarily ready to invest yet, but they know that they want to build, right? They obviously want to
Yes.
build to that next phase. What else haven't you mentioned just yet that I think is really important when it comes to organic marketing?
Yeah, I think obviously having great content and the strategy and all of the sort of thing, but I think in terms of growing and building, it is using to your advantage other people's audiences. So things like collaborations, things like influencers, brand ambassadors, all of those sorts of things you can do. It's such a great way to obviously ideally help each other. If you are doing a collaboration, you want to make sure it's mutually beneficial, but being able to use someone else's audience that they've built, and help your business and help build your business, obviously making sure they are your target market and all of those sort of things, so you're not just getting a whole bunch of randoms to your page and your website. But yeah, definitely taking advantage of other people's audiences whenever you can. Even sharing other brands. I've seen a few brands do this, sharing other brands on their stories or their socials, and then that brand shares that and then it directs people back to yours. So there's a few different ways to do it. But yeah, definitely don't just focus on obviously still focus on it, but you don't just need to worry about building your audience and, doing all these things. You can take advantage of other people's audiences that they've built, and do that in a really great way as well.
Yeah, awesome. Love collaborations. I think that's so, so good to be able to get into new audiences. What would you say would be the next step for, like, let's maybe that they've noticed that they've looked at their data and they're like, well, the audience that I actually have, I'm not really converting consistently. So what should I be doing? Is there certain practices that you suggest? Is there certain ways to, convert the audience that they already have?
Mm. Yeah, it's all about nurturing and changing their mindset. So, at the moment, they might just be following along because they like your pictures, or they might think that you're great personally if you are sharing that personal brand, or they might, think the products are nice, but not really know that they need them. And you want to change that mindset to people that need your products and need what you're releasing and get excited about it and hop on it straight away. So that's kind of that mindset change that you need to make in your audience. And you can do that in a few different ways, but a lot of the ways it's going to be through your content. Obviously, sharing social proof is such a great one, and sharing other people using the products and reviews and things, but really, really focusing on your audience and knowing them inside out. So I talk a lot about pain and pleasure points, and that's knowing how your product can solve the struggles or the needs or the wants of your audience, and being able to communicate that in a really great way is going to really help your audience know why they actually need your product, how it's going to help them. You always want to focus on your audience and how that product's going to help them, rather than just saying it's pretty, or it's created with this. That's not really interesting to the audience. So you really have to think about the audience first always, and how it's going to help them.
Yeah, nice. And so what if the product is actually more of a nice to have, or like a luxury, rather than a thing that solves a problem?
Yeah, and this is probably, with things like fashion brands, something they struggle with a lot in terms of how to actually get people to buy. And great strategies for this is probably implementing that kind of social proof. So if you can get, your products shown with a lot of different people, if we're talking about a fashion brand specifically, showing your products on a lot of different people and showing how they look, it's not going to be something that you can really convince someone to buy in terms of this will change your life, or, help this specific struggle. But it is something that people want and something that people need a lot of the time. It might just make them feel nice about themselves. It might just look good on them. It might just get them ready for a party. Like, there are still things you can kind of work in there that might not be specific struggles or, needs, but, people always want things. So just reframing that and thinking about the wants and being able to communicate those instead still can work really well, even if you don't solve a particular problem.
Because even just like showing them in different situations or scenarios, or I think that, we need to get into the headspace of the client and be like, okay, so how, like, even for yourself, like if you selling a product, and you will obviously be a product buyer as well, like we all buy products.
Exactly.
So what is it that you need to see from other people that makes you go, oh, I really want that?
Yeah.
Or, like what do you need to see it with? Maybe like there's other areas that you need to focus on, and really getting into your customer's headspace will helpfully. Oh my God. Help with that.
Definitely, yeah. And that's why you need to know your audience so well, and do all that customer research and everything, because that's what's going to help you create that content that is going to convert them. So yeah, knowing your audience and focusing on them, so important.
Yeah, love it. Is there any other little simple things that you think that make a big difference in a business that often get forgotten?
Yeah, I guess if we're talking about organic socials, particularly Instagram, I'd say is Instagram stories. I feel like they are neglected a lot. I think people focus just on their feed, and see so many businesses not even really posting on their stories, or posting once a week or something like that. And
Wow, really?
Instagram stories are shown usually so much more than feed posts. I know myself, I go on Instagram and I just look at the stories. Sometimes I don't even scroll through my feed. And a lot of people are like that. So yeah, stories are looked at so frequently, and the more someone watches and interacts with your stories, the more you'll then be shown to them. So it is really helping strengthening those relationships with your specific audience members. And you can show just so much more candidly, you know, your business. You can be in the warehouse, again, going back to a fashion brand, in the warehouse, you know, showing your different styles, just getting someone in your team or you to pop on a style and saying this is coming soon or this is out now. Go and check it out. And that's not really something you probably would do on your feed, but it's something you can do in your stories, and really just show more real time your business and your products, and, you know, without the filters and without the curation and not having to think of a caption and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, I think Instagram stories, when they're used well, it can work so well. And yeah, I just feel like people don't take advantage of them enough.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fear around it, having to think you have to show your face. Like also, yeah. And I think that it's being mindful of like where you're noticing other people and recognizing whether it's a similar thing. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're a product-based business and you maybe follow personal brands or you follow service-based businesses, I see a lot of service-based businesses, and I suggest it as well for clients of mine, where we show our face and actually talk, because you want to build trust, especially if you're the one they're going to work with. You really want to build that trust. Whereas if you're a product-based business and seeing that and then doing that, it might not be as good of a fit. Would you say that?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I do when you can, and if you are comfortable showing your face, definitely recommend that. But it's not always necessary. And I think if you think again about your audience, what they might like to see, say your audience is mums, you're selling baby products, you can, you know, show parts of your day. Doesn't have to be of you or of your child or anything like that, but parts of your day that are about being a mum. And that's obviously going to relate to your audience. So it doesn't even have to always be about your products or about your brand, but again, about your audience and something they might just find entertaining and something they want to follow along and watch and keep watching every day, and, you know, be excited for your stories is something you really want to get to.
Love it. And is there any other type of organic marketing that you think that they need to be considering when they're wanting to grow other than socials?
Definitely. Email marketing, it's definitely not my forte, so I can't give any specific tips, but definitely recommend it. Obviously, we are in this space now that e-commerce is so crowded, social media is so crowded, so you do need to really have that multi-channel approach and not just be focusing on just Instagram. You know, if we're talking about social media, getting on TikTok and all of that sort of thing, and making sure you're reaching different customers at different points of their journey, where they're hanging out, all of that sort of thing. So yeah, things like email marketing is so important. I've seen clients get awesome results. I also have a client that does quite a lot of PR, and that helps our ads immensely, because obviously a lot more people are going to their website, a lot more people are searching for them, and then we're retargeting them with the ads, and building those audiences in other ways is just great. And when you can do it obviously for either no budget or on a low budget, obviously makes it a lot better too. And you can do it a lot more and build those audiences larger, because you're not just paying for every single person you're reaching.
Love it. That's so good. Such good advice. Love it. I would love for you to speak to, let's say we have like a service-based business that has actually introduced a digital product that they want to sell. What do you think that they need to be focusing on, or like what's different, like from being a service-based business to then step into actually having a product in your business? What do you see as different that maybe gets missed or that we need to be focusing on?
Yeah, maybe. And this is something I'm guilty of too, because I am a service provider that has digital products, not physical products, but digital ones. I just feel like service providers don't promote their products enough a lot of the time. Obviously, some people do, but I feel like obviously we are focused on providing those services, doing all the client work, which isn't something, you know, physical e-commerce businesses have to also do. So, you know, we're very busy, and, you know, usually our services are at a higher price point. We have those monthly retainers, and those are really the things that are getting the money in. And sometimes the digital products are just kind of a side thing that we can help smaller businesses with, or whatever it is. So we kind of sometimes put them to the side, and maybe just talk about them when they're launched, and then not really talk about them much at all. So I think being really consistent with your promotion of them is really important, and treating them like you would your services or your clients. You know, you really want to treat your business like you would a client's business if you are wanting to sell and grow. So yeah, that would, again, something I'm guilty of, but would be my best advice.
Yeah, totally guilty of it myself.
Yeah.
So I get it. What if we had a service-based business that actually launched a physical product? Would you suggest that they start a whole new Instagram, whole new Facebook page for that physical product, or still keep it under the same banner?
Yeah, if it's directly related to your business. I'll give you an example. I follow a naturopath on Instagram, I think she is, and she released kind of like a herbal supplement. That's definitely something I think that can stay under the same brand because it is, you know, directly related. But say you are a social media marketer and you released a fashion brand, you know, it's not something that's directly related. So definitely something you want to keep separate. Obviously something you can promote on your other socials because you might have that personal brand there and people that might be interested in that. But yeah, it's definitely something that should stay separate because it does have that unique audience. So yeah, I guess best way to think about it, is it the same audience as your service? If not, switch it up and yeah, separate it out.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right. So now let's talk a little bit more about paid. So when you think about someone just getting started, like they've grown that organic space, they've built their community, and now they're like, okay, I'm ready to start investing. Where should they start?
Yeah, do you mean in terms of platforms or strategies or both?
Both.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we do most of our ads work on Facebook and Instagram. So they're both done on the Facebook or Meta Ads Manager platform. And yeah, I think they're a really great way to start, especially if you have all of those other things in place, because it is really easy to reach a lot of new people. You can target it really well. Have really great creatives, all of that sort of thing. So in terms of strategy, always creating a funnel. So in terms of how we would do that on ads, it's creating different campaigns for different audiences and different stages of that funnel. So creating a campaign for all your cold audiences, which are all those new audiences you're trying to reach. Having different audiences and ads in that than you would a separate warm campaign with all of those audiences you've nurtured and grown already. So keeping those separate and making sure you're targeting both. So a lot of the people will be like, oh, I built all these audiences, so I want to retarget them and nurture them through the ad. So they just create, you know, a warm campaign. But then the problem is you're not actually building on those audiences and you only have, you know, a certain amount of people in that audience. So then when you turn on a cold campaign, which is all the new audiences, you will see that growth start to happen. But again, you can't do the cold campaign without the warm campaign because then you're just targeting new people and not nurturing them at all. So definitely having both in place is the best strategy and something I definitely recommend. If you're going to do ads and if you don't have the budget to do both and split across both, then I don't really recommend starting with ads because you're just not going to get the results.
Okay. And so then to prepare for that, what do they need to do? Because I think like it's one of those things like, it's like the cart before the, oh my God, I need to figure out what that saying is, horse before the cart kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be that uncomfortable space where you're investing and the results aren't there just yet, or it's scary, right? Like that next level of investing. And I think that it's like, well, what do we need to have in place in order to trust that that's going to work? Or yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm trying to ask here. It's like, how do we overcome that hurdle?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. A lot of it is going to be just making sure you have those things in place, you know, that I have spoken about in terms of consistent sales. Also, really great point, making sure you're not just relying on the ads for your sales. So as we kind of spoke about, you know, some people are like, I'm not getting any sales, so I'm going to start Facebook ads and they'll get me sales. And if you're just relying on that, it's going to be, again, in that stress state, and all of that money you're pouring in is going to be, you know, you're relying on those sales and relying on that money to come back to you through the ads, but you're not getting sales anywhere else. It's definitely the worst way to start ads. So yeah, I think just making sure you're not relying on the ads and just using them as that platform to build and grow is kind of what you want to have in place, both physically and also in your mindset, I guess.
Yeah. Because I think there's also like, I can imagine that there's that fear around investing and putting that money aside because there's so many horror stories, right? Like about like all this money, I lost all this money and all this stuff. So like, is there anything else? Like I always think that from a money point of view, like if you're not setting money aside for investment back into your business, you will always stay at the same cycle, right? You'll always still just keep creating the same results because you're not reinvesting back in. And I think that's the same across service and product-based businesses. So maybe it's like even just getting your money sorted, because if you're taking the money that you need to survive, or you're taking the money that you need to reinvest in new product to actually have to sell, then you're staying in the same cycle, right? Like especially with product-based businesses, like it's challenging to have stock sitting there that's not selling, but
Mm.
at the same time going, well, I need to have money to put towards ads, but I'm taking that money from my life.
Yeah.
That's really hard. So what my suggestion would actually be is to start setting aside the smallest amount that can be put aside in a separate bank account that is designed for investment, that you can actually take from that as you grow, right? Is there anything else
Yeah.
that you would suggest?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I heard one of my agency friends talk about this on Instagram. Would have been a few weeks ago now. Jara from SVJ Studios. I'm sure you follow her. But yeah, she was talking about how, you know, if you are ready to, and this is, I guess, more outsourcing to kind of an agency, but really starting ads at all, you don't want to be using the money that you use to live. You want to be getting the profits from your products that you're selling, and that's the money that you're investing into the ads and into the growth. So yeah, definitely having a separate marketing budget and making sure it's not that survival money, because that's when it is going to be stressful. And that's not what we want to have with ads. We don't want it to be a stressful experience.
Not at all. And it is like, yeah, if you're coming from that desperation or that scarcity, you're basically like, never, it's not good energy you put out with your ads at all. It probably won't work.
Yes, horrible energy for you, for your ads, for also if you are outsourcing to an agency or a freelancer, also horrible energy for them to, you know, have to, I guess, deal with, because we want it to be a really positive and fun experience and want to be able to get you the results. So yeah, it's definitely, when you can have that great mindset and not be so stressed about it, is the best way and best time to start ads.
Yeah, love it. And so what are you noticing in the market at the moment when it comes to people doing their Facebook advertising or Instagram advertising? What are you noticing is working and not working?
Yeah, I guess I mentioned this before, but having that multi-channel approach, not just relying on one platform, whether that be paid or organic. Also in terms of just, you know, paid ads, in terms of the creatives, you know, a lot of the time before we'd be using that real professional imagery and video. And now there's really been that shift to, you know, that more organic, just phone videos or photos, because, you know, that's what people are sharing organically on their socials. And ideally you don't want to stand out as an ad on the platform. You want it to be something that people just see naturally in their feed and go, oh, what's that? And then they, you know, read it and then they realize it's an ad and be like, oh, cool. And they're already invested in that because they didn't, you know it was an ad. People don't like ads. So if you can disguise your ads as not an ad, that's when you're going to get really great results. So yeah, things like user generated content and anything that really isn't super professional is working really well at the moment. Obviously there is definitely time and place for that professional content, but yeah, I think it's becoming a lot easier for brands to create their own content, which is great, because it saves money and time and you can create a lot more of it.
Love it. And you're so right. Like the amount of times that I like flick back to a story because I thought it was someone that I knew. And then I'm like,
Yes.
hang on a minute, what's this? Or I'll be scrolling through and then you end up down like the funnel and you're like already putting your email address in and then you're like, what? That was even an ad.
Yes.
Love it. So good. And so what do you wish business owners thought about Facebook advertising?
Oh, that's a great question. I wish that I feel like I've said this a few times already in this episode, but I wish they really thought of it as that kind of growth tool to invest in, and not that thing that's just going to be almost like a poker machine. What is it called? Like the pokies. What are they called? Poker machine?
Pokies.
Yeah. Don't know why I couldn't think of what that was called. But you know, you're going to put money in it and it's going to bring money back, although the pokies don't do that all the time. But you know, people do think of it as that kind of transactional thing and think, you know, when they put some money in, they're going to get that money back. And that's not really how you should be looking at the ads. You know, you should be looking at it like any other marketing platform or strategy that you're using. And it's for that long-term growth. And, you know, you might have to invest in it and might not give you money back straight away, but over the long term, it's going to help you grow and help you scale and get to that next level. So yeah, I think just changing the business owner's mindset around ads and kind of how they work and how they should work for you is probably what, I wish more people knew. But definitely something I educate a lot on, hoping to change people's minds about ads and making them think of them as this fun growth tool rather than just that transactional, stressful, relying on ads situation.
Love it. So good. So good, Chelsea. So Tell me more about you were going to share with us a way to actually work on your organic marketing, and I'm going to share a link in the show notes.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've spoken a bit about, content, having that really great content strategy, building a community, all of those sort of things. So I have a free opt-in, and it's all about creating your content strategy. So we go into creating your content pillars, which are, different topics, and there's some great tips in there about making sure you are posting the right content for your audience and converting them and nurturing them and all that sort of thing. So yeah, we'll definitely have a link for you. But that's, just a free opt-in, and I've got some great feedback from the people that have downloaded it. It's been quite a long-term freebie of mine, because people just love it. And if you can just start creating that content strategy, even in a basic way, it's going to really help you.
Amazing. And where can people find you, reach out to you, learn more about you?
Yes, so I have a website, just blossommedia.com.au, but Instagram is definitely where I am most active on there, way too much. But I do share a lot of educational content as well on there. So if you do want to learn more, definitely come and follow me on there. It's just _media_ at the end. But yeah, always happy to chat, answer questions, and very active on there. So come and follow along.
Amazing. I'll make sure all the show notes are in the notes. All the links are in the show notes. My goodness, my words back to front today. All the links are in the show notes, so they can come and check out all that you share. And yes, you do share lots of valuable content. So thank you so much for doing that. And so one last question. What's one thing that you think is important for a business owner to think about when it comes to taking their business to the next level?
Oh, good question. I think just making sure that you are willing to invest, because I do think you have to, and I know we've spoken about this a bit, but I do think you have to invest money usually to get to that next level, specifically in an e-commerce business. So making sure you're putting that money aside and making sure you have that mindset of, I am going to invest into my business, but it's going to come back to me, and it is going to get me to that stage I want to be at. So yeah, definitely a big believer in investing. And I think it's vital to do in a business if you don't want to stay in the exact same spot.
I absolutely agree. You cannot keep just selling to the same audience. And unless you're doing a bunch of different organic strategies to bring in new audiences, then ads is probably the quickest and best way to do it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all this incredible information with us today. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.